Okay, so for anyone who kind of follows what the super rich are up to, this idea of luxury survival bunkers, it's not totally brand new.
Right.
But today, we're really diving deep into just how big this whole thing has become. It's actually kind of mind-boggling. We're talking about these huge, really secretive structures being built way underground.
Yeah.
Far from everything across the U.S. and even elsewhere.
Yeah, and what's really striking, I think, is that this isn't just like speculation, it's actually happening right now.
Right.
So our deep dive today, it's all about these billionaire survival bunkers. And the mission, really, is to unpack not just the what and the who, but maybe more importantly, the why.
The why, yeah.
Like, what specific stuff are these elites really gearing up for? And maybe what does that signal about how they see the future for the rest of us?
And when we say bunkers,
Yeah.
you really need to forget that image of like a simple concrete basement shelter.
Oh, completely, yeah.
Our sources, they describe these things as underground 5-star hotels for the apocalypse. Seriously.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And the price tags, they can easily run into like tens of millions of dollars. The level of luxury and just sheer self-sufficiency, it's kind of remarkable.
It really is. And look, this isn't some, fringe conspiracy theory anymore. It's a very real, tangible trend. And it seems to be growing. We're seeing billionaires, other elites, actively buying up huge amounts of land, often in really remote places.
Whereabouts? Like specific examples?
Well, I think Montana, Kansas, New Mexico, here in the U.S.
Yeah.
But it's not just the U.S. either. Places as far away as New Zealand are popping up too.
New Zealand, interesting. So, okay, it's not just buying remote land then. It sounds like there are actually companies that specialize in this very specific thing.
Exactly. There's a whole industry springing up. You mentioned survival condo project, for instance.
Yeah.
Our sources dig into how they're taking old, decommissioned nuclear missile silos.
Wow.
And turning them into these unbelievably plush havens. You pay millions, sure, but you get things like private swimming pools, cinemas, even full armories.
Armories. And didn't I read something about drone defense?
Yep. Integrated drone defense systems, too. It's a pretty comprehensive approach to, staying alive in style, I guess.
Staying alive style.
And the details, they go beyond just the luxury stuff. They've got these advanced air filtration systems specifically designed, apparently, to handle chemical or biological warfare agents.
Seriously. Chemical and biological.
Yeah. Plus, blast-proof exteriors. It really highlights just how broad the range of threats these people think they need protection from. It's a very calculated strategy.
Risk mitigation.
A calculated strategy.
Yes.
Yeah, that fits. So what are they preparing for exactly? It sounds like it's not just one single big disaster they're worried about.
No, definitely not.
It almost seems like they're looking at global risk, like, I don't know, a financial portfolio, hedging their bets.
That's a really good analogy, actually. That's a key point.
Yeah.
Their risk portfolio, if you want to call it that, it's not narrow at all.
Oh, it definitely includes stuff like nuclear war concerns, especially, with global tensions rising, Russia, China.
Right. That's obvious enough. But what else?
But it also goes into things like potential widespread economic collapse and the kind of civil unrest that might follow something like that.
Civil unrest.
And even, future pandemics. Maybe something worse than what we saw with COVID.
That's quite a list already. And it sounds like they're covering all the bases.
Pretty much.
Beyond the, biological and geopolitical stuff, the sources also mention worries about AI and cyber warfare attacks, things that could just shut down everything.
Yeah, crippling critical infrastructure. That's a big one. And then, of course, there's the climate change angle.
Right.
Mass flooding, huge fires, maybe even famine resulting from it all. It's almost like a checklist of every possible worst-case scenario.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah. And that analogy you used about the financial portfolio, it's spot on. They're treating global risk just like that. And these underground bunkers, they're literally the ultimate hedge. They're insurance policy against, everything falling apart.
It reminds me of that quote from Alexis Ohanian, the Reddit co-founder.
Oh, yeah, I know the one. He invested in survival land.
Right. And he said something like, it's not paranoia, it's preparation.
Exactly. That quote really captures the mindset, I think.
It definitely does. So, okay, to give everyone listening a better idea of what this preparation actually looks like on the ground, or, under the ground, let's peek inside one of these places.
Okay.
There's one specific facility in rural Kansas built in an old missile silo.
Right. That's a well-documented one. The defenses there are Pretty intense. Starts right at the entrance with these massive blast-proof steel doors, you can imagine.
Huge steel doors, check. And once you're inside...
The scale is just, wow. It goes down, believe it or not, up to 15 stories underground.
15 stories down. That's like an upside-down skyscraper.
Pretty much, yeah. A subterranean skyscraper. And inside this fortress, you've got these high-end private units. Condos, essentially.
And they cost... what was it? Up to $5 million each.
Up to $5 million, yeah. And these aren't just like basic little rooms. They're fully kitted out luxury apartments, basically.
Okay, but what about staying alive long term? What makes them self-sufficient? That's the key.
Absolutely. Self-sufficiency is everything. So typically these places have their own independent well systems for water. Clean, reliable water is crucial.
Makes sense. Power.
For power, it's usually a mix. Solar, geothermal, and then multiple diesel generator backups. Redundancy is key.
Okay. And food. I read something crazy about the food.
Oh, yeah. They apparently store over 5 years' worth of food per person. And not just, basic rations. We're talking gourmet meals.
5 years of gourmet meals. Underground. That really doubles down on the five-star hotel idea, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It raises some questions about, the psychology of being isolated that long, but they are definitely prepared for it, food-wise.
And beyond food and power, the security must be intense.
Oh, completely next level. There's usually a central command center. Private communications, encrypted networks.
Armed guards.
Armed guards, yeah. Biometric locks everywhere. 247 surveillance. The whole setup is designed to be, well, basically impenetrable.
Impenetrable. And the sources are clear on who this is for.
Very clear. This is explicitly not about public survival or community shelters or anything like that.
Right.
It's designed, it's marketed exclusively for the 1%. That exclusivity, it's fundamental to the whole concept. It really signals a huge divide in how different people are thinking about the future.
That exclusivity, yeah, that says a lot. So let's name some names. Who are the big players getting involved in this? I know a lot of it's probably quiet, but some names must have come out.
Some have, yeah. Peter Thiel is probably the most famous example.
Ah, yes, New Zealand.
Exactly. Bought nearly 500 acres there, got citizenship, built what he calls his bolt hole. That caused quite a stir.
I bet. Who else? Bill Gates. There are always rumors.
Persistent rumors, yeah. Supposedly has private bunkers up in Washington state, though, less confirmed publicly.
And Mark Zuckerberg. I think I saw something about Hawaii.
Yeah, that's more recent news. He's reportedly building a pretty huge bunker, like 5,000 square feet, right under his estate in Hawaii. That definitely got people talking.
5,000 square feet underground. Wow. What about Elon Musk? He's always focused on Mars, right? Escaping Earth entirely.
Well, yeah, publicly it's all Mars, Mars, Mars. But according to some insiders, he's also apparently investing in AI-proof shelter systems. Right here on Earth.
AI-proof. Interesting. So even Mr. Mars wants a backup plan on the home planet.
Seems like it. For him, maybe it's not just about going to space, but also having secure options, terrestrially, just in case.
Makes sense, I guess. And beyond these big individual names, you mentioned companies that cater to this market.
Right. There are several key players. Rising S Company is one. Survival Condo, which we talked about. Vivos Group is another big name in this space.
And they offer different packages, presumably?
Yeah, a whole range. You can get in maybe at the quote-unquote lower end for around $500,000.
$500,000. Low end. Okay.
Yeah. And then the really high-end custom stuff can go way over $10 million. It's a very specific and robust market.
Clearly. So, okay, this isn't just about having a safe room for a hurricane then. There seems to be a much deeper, maybe philosophical thing going on here.
I think that's right.
Why do these billionaires seem to be, losing faith in society?
Yeah.
So much faith that they're pouring billions into basically opting out, going it alone.
That's really the core question, isn't it? And the sources suggest it really comes down to a profound desire for control and survival in a world they genuinely seem to believe is getting more and more unstable.
Control and survival. And it sounds like they don't really trust governments to, protect them? Keep things running if stuff really hits the fan.
That seems to be a major factor, a deep distrust that governments can actually maintain order or even protect their own citizens during widespread chaos.
So it's not just a general unease. They have specific worries driving these huge investments.
Apparently so. Specific beliefs like the global economy could just completely tank overnight.
Wow.
Or that civil unrest could literally destroy major cities. And maybe even that governments themselves could turn authoritarian in a major crisis. It's it's a pretty bleak outlook they seem to have.
It really is. There was that quote from a former engineer at Vivos, one of those companies.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. What was it?
Something like, they see the writing on the wall. Then he added, they know what's coming and they're escaping before the rest catch on.
Chilling. Yeah. That really highlights the sense of, like, urgency and almost perceived insider knowledge. Like, they think they see something the rest of us don't.
Which just begs the huge question, doesn't it? Are their fears actually justified? Are they just, incredibly wealthy and paranoid? Or are they, like that engineer suggested, the only ones really paying attention to some critical global problems?
Well, if you step back and look at the bigger picture, the sources do point to some pretty sobering global realities that, could be fueling these fears.
Such as?
Well, there's accelerating climate change, obviously. You've got U.S. national debt at absolutely historic highs. Geopolitical tensions seem to be rising almost everywhere you look.
True. And then you throw in the whole AI revolution.
Exactly. The potential for AI to massively disrupt job markets, maybe even destabilize democratic systems themselves. It's a lot.
So, yeah, you don't have to, agree with their conclusion that the apocalypse is nigh.
Right.
But you can't ignore the fact that they are spending billions preparing to survive something big. It suggests they see very real, very tangible risks on the horizon.
Which inevitably brings us to the societal implications. The kind of unspoken divide this whole trend really throws into sharp relief.
Yeah, because let's be honest, the average person, you, me, we can't afford a $5 million bunker, let alone the $10 million plus one.
Not even close.
So it really makes you think, doesn't it? What does it mean for us as a society when the most extreme survival measures are only available to, a tiny fraction of the population?
Our sources really push on that. What happens to the whole idea of a shared future, of community resilience, when the wealthiest people are basically planning to ride out the storm alone in their own self-contained bubbles?
It raises some pretty big ethical questions, like what happens if the world does go through some massive upheaval and only billionaires have these fortresses to retreat to?
Yeah. Should this even be allowed while, most people are struggling paycheck to paycheck? Are we basically setting things up so only the rich get a chance to, restart the world if things go badly?
Heavy questions. And maybe the most critical one that the sources leave us with is just why? Why are they preparing so urgently, spending these fortunes on these incredibly elaborate setups?
Well, the rest of us are mostly just getting on with daily life, maybe distracted.
Exactly. Well, the rest of us seem comparatively unprepared or maybe just unaware.
The future, it's always uncertain, right? That's kind of the definition.
Sure.
But one thing seems pretty clear from all this. The ultra-rich are actively preparing for scenarios that most of us, frankly, can barely even imagine.
Yeah. And the question that just hangs there for all of us really is, what is it that they think they know that we don't?
It definitely gives you a lot to think about, puts things in perspective, maybe. And it makes you wonder, hypothetically, if things really did go south, would you actually want to live in one of those bunkers? Cut off from everything.
That's a whole other layer to it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something for you all listening to chew on.